Howdy folks, Tex here. Welcome to Southern Belle Bigfoot. Let me introduce y'all to a great friend of mine, Celena.
Hey y'all, I'm Celena. I started this channel because I had my own encounter, and I know what it's like to be ridiculed and unable to share my experiences. I want to give everyone a safe haven to share their encounters with these magnificent beings. I love to hear yours as well. Please email them to me at cwlenagarrett@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support me in my journey to the truth, my Cash App is $Selena Bigfoot, and I look forward to hearing from you.
And we are here again on a Sunday, Mother's Day. In fact, happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there.
Yes.
You know what? And I know this very traditionally, it's, Mother's Day, you've your biological, stuff. That's the way people think about it. I don't. I think about when I say happy Mother's Day, it's to any mothers that's got biological kids, anybody that's been a step parent, anybody that's taken in a kid that, didn't have anywhere else to go, but also we tend to leave these folks out is the mamas with their fur babies, because they get, folks, I have a fur baby of my own. He is a part of the family. Okay. We can get as attached to them as we can anything else. And we take care of them too. And a lot of people like Celena here treats them like their children because, her fur babies are spoilt rotten. I'm just going to tell you right now. And she's got some beautiful ones too. But I want to say happy Mother's Day to all of you mamas out there. All of you mamas out there. So I hope you had a good one. I know I did. I called him my son-in-law. I did a video. They're not married. But my oldest daughter and her boyfriend came over and he cooked for us. And it was amazing. I let and I know, folks, I know a lot of you are going to beat me up for letting another man touch my grill, but I'm telling you, this boy knew what he was doing. We had grilled oysters.
Oh,
yeah, grilled oysters were phenomenal. He cooked beef short ribs, pork ribs, hot buffalo wings, 2 types of sausage. But he laid it out. We had fresh corn on the cob, charro beans. It was on, man, on like Donkey Kong. And I am miserable still.
Well, you sound like you're making me jealous because I'm having Captain D's. But anyways, I'm serious when I say that he's truly telling the truth about me and my babies. Anyways, I want to tell everybody in chat, I love you all individually in each different way. I just love y'all so much. But we have David Eller, y'all. Cryptozoologist, an author, and this man got the best personality, and I just love that about him. So, Tex, let's bring him on out. David Eller, everybody.
Let's do it. The man, the myth, the legend, David Eller.
Hey, folks. Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate you coming on with us. And we were talking backstage, and Celena asked, "Well, Tex, do you know him?" Because she gives me a hard time because every time we have somebody on the show, I've known him for several years. I've known of you, now I hadn't been creeping on you or nothing, David, I promise. But I've known of you for several years. And we're going to get to meet for the first time just a few weeks down the road because you're going to be one of the speakers at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference that Anita Collier's putting on. And I'm going to be the MC, and you're going to be there. MK Davis is going to be there. Melissa Adair is going to be there. Actually, Anita is going to be speaking. And I'm excited about this one. I really am. I think it's going to be just a fabulous turnout. I think it's going to be a great conference. I've heard so much about you. I've seen some of your stuff, and I got to tell you, I personally, I think you know what you're talking about. So you got my stamp of approval.
Well, I
Well,
appreciate
I can't
that.
wait. I can't wait. It's my first conference and I cannot wait. But tell us, David, how did you even get in this to know these creatures were real? How did you even get
Yeah.
in this sort
Yeah.
of
Before we
situation?
get into that, I just want to say that Anita will be speaking at my conference in like the end of the week, this weekend. She'll be at my
Awesome.
conference. So it's kind of this
Nope.
incestuous relationship going on.
Right.
So,
Right. What
uh,
now? Where is this conference at? Well, you need to tell us about
conference
that.
is in Paducah, Kentucky, the Atomic City Paranormal Symposium. So
There you
Anita
go.
will be there. I'll be speaking. Tamara Steyer, who is a fairly well-known dowser, will be there. We have Geraldine Stith, who is the granddaughter of the family that the Hopkinsville Goblin event happened
Oh
to.
wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
Susan Edwards will be talking
Mhm.
about a lot of things, including fairies. And before you laugh, I've seen her pictures, and I'm blown away. These orbs tend to manifest around her, and she started taking pictures of them. Then she said, I don't know anything about the computer generated stuff, so I didn't do any
Right.
of that. She just zoomed up on them, and there are little people inside these orbs, absolute perfect little fairies. So before you laugh, you just got to look at her pictures. Okay, so it's going to be fun. Ron Moorhead will be there. Chester Moore, who is one of my favorite speakers. Uh,
Chester's great. I love Chester to
Chester's
death,
a
man.
beautiful man. He's just a
Yeah,
wonderful
he is.
person and a good Christian guy, and I love him to death. So anyway, that's what I'm into. So, but now to answer your very pointed question, when I was 8 or 9, very young and impressionable, I read an article in Reader's Digest about the Roger Patterson film, Patterson Gimlin, and it had the famous still, the one, and I don't remember what frame it is, but it's the classic where it's walking, looking back. And it just fascinated me and scared me to death. And I asked Mom, are these around here? And she said, well, I don't know. This says it's in California, so I'm going to say they're probably not around here. Now, as backstory, she had an experience when she was a young girl on my grandfather's property that was about 10 miles from us. So she never acknowledged it until much later. So in a way, she already knew that they were around. So that's kind of weird. So from that point on, I began to collect everything I could find, every book, every magazine article. I tried to listen to news broadcasts, anything I could find that dealt with Bigfoot. I had it in my collection until I amassed this huge collection. My collection of books by the time I got into high school was I don't know anyone who had a bigger Bigfoot collection. So it was a fever. I had to learn everything I could about these things. When I got out of high school, I decided that as I grow up, I'm going to search for these things. And I was lucky enough or blessed enough to meet a woman who also wanted to travel. So for 40 years, we traveled and looked for monsters. And uh, it was a fascinating adventure. I've done a lot of things. I've done things that people look at me and say, how did you do that without just absolutely freaking out? And I
Right.
don't have the fear. I just don't have the fear. I got lost in a pyramid in the Yucatan. My
Oh
flat,
wow.
that was my first paranormal experience. And I don't know how much you want me to go into this, but I could talk for hours. But I've been called.
We've got an hour, so
Okay.
you know what? We wound you up. You go.
That's
Okay.
what people do. That's what people do. And I do a lecture, an hour-long lecture on podcasts. So my first paranormal experience, we were in the Yucatan, and I was bound and determined I was going to explore the pyramids. So I bought a brand new flashlight, brand new batteries. I was set. I was ready to go. So I got up on, and the doorways to pyramids are like in the center of the pyramid. So I was up there on that level. My wife was down. Now the Yucatan is different than any jungle I've ever been in. It's hot and dry. I'm used to hot, wet environments in jungles,
Right.
but this place was so dry, you could splash water on yourself and you could almost hear it evaporate off of you. It was like, phew, you were
Wow.
dry. So here I am up on this level, and the doorway is there, and I'm having to kind of scope beneath me because there are kind of sentries and people watching. They don't like you to go in there.
Mm.
So I'm standing by the door and I'm waiting for my moment, and I just kind of roll in, and now I'm inside, and it's a cave. I mean, there's no light. So get my flashlight out and I head down the corridor. Now, I have been called an Indiana Jones of paranormal research. So, and this is why. So I'm going into this pyramid, and it's getting darker and darker. The farther you get from the door, the blacker it gets until you are in complete blackness. So I'm just waiting for the arrows to start coming out of the walls, you know? So I get in there. I'm a good ways in there, and I'm going the circuitous route, and I'm making my turns and stuff. And I begin to get this feeling like something doesn't want me here. It was just a feeling. Nothing said anything or did anything. It was just like, ugh, what am I doing here? Then I began to hear metal on metal sound. Ting, 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 ting. So I analyzed this, and I'm trying to think, is that a bat? No, it doesn't sound like echolocation. Is it a bird? No, it couldn't be a bird because birds fly out of darkness. They don't fly into darkness. That's why they can have those cages in zoos where it's all black around it, but there's light in the bird cage, and the birds never go into the darkness. They stay there without bars. They stay in the light. So I'm thinking that can't be. And then my flashlight began to dim. And it took about 10 seconds, and I was in complete and total darkness. Now I'm in the middle of a pyramid, and I have to find my way out without light, remembering backwards how I got in, feeling the walls. Again, I'm waiting for the arrows to start shooting, and I managed to do it. I kept making my turns until finally I got out. About 6 months later, I read an article in a magazine that said people hear that metal on metal sound. They still don't know what it is. So that was cool. I'm one of the few people who have ever heard that. And it's like, that just turned me on, and it just made me want to keep going. And I have seen things that just are just absolutely amazing. Orbs that big coming out of walls one time. And it passed in front of a television, and as you could see the television through it, but it looked like heat on a hot road. He was doing this, just waiting until it got around and it went into another room. And that's when Joyce, my wife, and I had this big discussion, and it was pretty crazy. But continue with Bigfoot. So our first investigation together was in Canada, and we were on a highway that went through Banff, and it was an area that has more sightings than any other area in North America. So we did our thing, and we did our wood knocks and stuff. And that's really where I learned to wood knock. And I don't subscribe to wood knocking as a be all and end all. It's a good way to research and let something know you're there, but I don't think it's like the number one thing to do. So, but I learned on that trip. And there was one time we were almost done with the investigation, and I did a wood knock, and I was coming up on this little knoll, and the trees were just tight, just wrapped and just tied together. You couldn't see 3 feet into the woods. I mean, it was a wall of trees. So I'm knocking, and I'm climbing this hill, knock, knock. And I always do 2, knock, 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 knock. And as I'm going up, suddenly from inside that little clump of trees, I hear boom, boom, mimicking what I just did. And I think it hit me with subsonic frequencies, because all of a sudden, man, I just had fear. I had to get out of there, and I had to back down the hill. Now, in my mind, I'm screaming, what are you doing? This is why you're here. But something else inside me was saying, back off, back off. And finally, I shook it off, and I went back up the hill and kept knocking. Well, it was done. It's not going to repeat. And I've learned that once these things shut down, you can't get them to start up again. We went to Mount St. Helens. I went to Ape Canyon and did some research and did a few yells and calls. I got nothing. And I thought, I'm going to do this one more time. And I got right along the lava flow, and I could see Mount St. Helens up to my right. And I gave out with the best blast I could, waited about 5 seconds, and I got the classic bell tone scream. that sounds
Oh,
like
nice.
3 different sounds at the same time. Human vocal cords can't do this.
Right.
They've researched and said they don't know anything that can make this sound, but it really does sound like three different things going on. It
Right.
almost sounds mechanical.
Yeah.
And I thought that I put that notch in my belt. I got the bell tone. So it's just been one thing after another. And then in 2021, I found the pagoda site. I went to this place here in Tennessee, seeing what I could find. And I found what has been called the Holy Grail of Bigfoot sites because of the structures, the interactions. I believe there were probably 3 active creatures there. I actually saw 2, but I talked through wood knocks with 3 separate creatures at the same time. When I first got to that site, I would hear woodpeckers. I've never seen, and in a year, I never saw a woodpecker, but every time I went in, I heard, and I always thought that is really weird. And one day I was walking along and I had my mallet with me, cedar mallet, and I came up on these trees and they were like that. And it was just enough room in there to do this number. So I just thought, well, that would be cool. So I went, and I realized right then, that's what I've been hearing. It's not a woodpecker. It's something or someone doing that.
Right.
And I thought that is really interesting. So I did it again. And I got an answer back, which is weird because woodpeckers don't communicate with pecks. They peck because they're getting food out of the tree bark. They're digging for bugs. And I thought this is telling me something. So I did it again. Got another one. And I thought, wow, that's weird. I wonder if I change up what will happen. So my dad was a Morse coder in the Army. So he taught me a little bit. So I did kind of like a fake Morse code.
Right.
Now I'm getting another one answering me over in this direction. So I'm talking to woodpecker dude and I'm talking to Morse code dude. And I'm thinking, I got 2 creatures here talking to me. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what they're saying, but we're talking. And I did that for a while. And then I thought, well, maybe I need to switch up to something else. What's going to happen if I just do a drum beat? Boom, 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 boom. A third one began to mimic that right in front of me. So now I'm talking to 3. I got, drummer, I got woodpecker, and I got Morse coder. We're carrying on 3 different conversations at the same time. And we did that for 10 minutes until some hikers came through. And once they shut down, you can't get them to start again. But these guys would punk me. They would mess with my equipment. There was one time I was at what are called glades in this area. Tennessee has what's called glades. They are considered desert areas because of the plants that are there and the plants that aren't there. But they're like little stone fields. I always said they remind me of the final scene of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where they're in the cemetery and they're on that rocky stone surface. That's what they look like.
Right.
So I would investigate those and then I would walk back to the pagodas. Now I have to explain what the pagodas are, but before I do that, and this is a long circuitous trek from one to the other, I would get to the pagoda and I would hear stone on stone, da, 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 and it was nonstop. I turned around and I walked my circuitous route back to the glade. Once I got there, there was nothing. There was nothing there. And I thought, that's really weird. What was that? And so I started back to the pagoda. No sooner did I get to the pagoda, da, 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 and I thought, that's the craziest thing. So I take my route back to the glade. 4 times they did that to me until I realized they're punking me. They're investigating me as much as I'm investigating them. They want to see how many times the guy in the hat will come back. And that's when I realized they have a humor. They've got something about them that enjoys messing with humans. And this was their humor. Now, humor is a human emotion. Having fun. Animals, we like to impress our personalities on our pets. And we like to assume that they're doing things that maybe they're not, but we like to attach our egos to our familiars.
Right.
So, but I don't know of any animals that truly have humor. I think these creatures do, and I think they were testing me and punking me. So when I first got into this area, it's a 150-acre tract of land that's owned by the state. There's immense forests around this piece of property, but this particular piece is no hunting. So it was almost like This was a sanctuary. You can hear guns going off all around, but nobody hunts here. So it was almost
Right.
like this is our security right here. And there was so much activity there. They made structures. They made classic seesaws with the big tree and the crotch of
Hmm.
another, balanced so well. I mean, you can do this, but they never fall apart. They did all of the weird, intricate things. And what I found that I call pagodas are braided structures. Now, we have seen braided flags, which I found later, braided flags, braided grasses, braided horse manes, which goes along with all of this.
That
But
fascinates me.
it's crazy the stuff that they want to braid. And so I walk up on this beautiful piece, and it looks like an igloo. They take trees, bend them over to the other side, attach them to another tree, bend it over, and they braid. They actually braid the branches and the twigs, even the little teeny tiny ones. It's like they can't stop braiding, and it just goes and goes. I found this one, and I immediately called my friend, Southern gentleman. Has created 7 museums in his lifetime. So he loves looking at stuff and presenting it. So I didn't mention braid. I wanted to see what he thought. So now this first pagoda was made of at least 20 trees that have been bent over, making
Wow.
this igloo thing. And he walked up to it and looked and looked and looked and stepped back, and he said, "This is braided." And I said, "Yeah, dude, thank you. I didn't mention that word because I didn't want to color your thoughts." But he said, "David, I was raised around women who braided. These are classic braids." And he called one either a left-handed braid or an underhanded braid, but he knew all the terminologies. And he said, "This is braided." Okay. Um, I researched that pagoda for about 2 months until one day my friend was there and I was in another area. He was looking at the first pagoda. I found the second pagoda that hadn't been there the week before. So it's like these creatures knew we were really interested in the first one, and they did another one for me. I'm assuming it was for me. I'm going to say that, you know? And I said, "Charles, you got to get down here." So he was there the day that I discovered the second one. And later on, as I researched, I found the big one. I call it the longhouse. Now, the first two were about a 20-foot circle. The longhouse is 20 by 30, and it was like they just couldn't stop braiding. It was almost like they made 2 rooms. It was like a small one attached to a large one. Now, the other weird thing about these is that as I looked at them, I'm seeing modern sculpture. Now, all 3 of these things could sit in a modern sculpture museum because it's like they were interpreting their surroundings by using their surroundings. It's a very primitive, aboriginal looking
Hmm.
structure. Okay. You couldn't live in them because there's still too much open space, but there's like something you would put in your garden.
Right.
So each one of these, if I believe that they're art, I'm an artist. Every artist wants to sign their stuff. Oddly enough, every pagoda has markers. I call them axes, and they take one of the big flat stones, jam it down between 2 saplings, and then they start twisting and braiding. So now they look like an upside down axe sitting on the ground. The large one had 7. 2 of these were so old that the trees they had placed them in had grown up around them, and there's no way you could get these stones out of the tree. Now the others were the smaller ones. So by that I can kind of age that the longhouse had been there a long time. If the stones
Yeah.
themselves, if the tree had grown around it so you couldn't get it out, that means it's been there a long time. The other 2, the saplings still were pliable, and
Right.
so in my world, I'm thinking these are fairly new. Well, I know the second one is. It was done while I was
Right.
researching the first one. Now the other weird thing is these could possibly be what I call cribs. Gorillas do this,
Hmm.
orangutans do this. They make a structure or a nest. They keep the kids in that and say, "Mom and Dad are going to go out foraging, so you stay here."
Right.
And I can definitely see that. There is this theory, and I can't think of the guy's name right now, but anyway, he has come up with the Bigfoot brain, autistic brain, because these creatures tend to like to line stuff up. like some autistic people. You go into an
Mhm.
autistic person's room or house, everything's lined up. The books are perfect. The cups are all color coded. Everything's got to be perfect. In the floor of the first pagoda, there are numerous sticks, all the same size, all lined up in different ways, horizontally, vertically, all over the floor of this. Now, if I believe that these are cribs or possibly cribs, what would a baby Bigfoot use as toys? What would a young creature utilize as toys? Where they're going to use the things around them, they're going to
Right.
make Lincoln logs. They're going to make the same sizes and stack them up and play with them. Now, if I also believe that these are cribs, which I do, it would follow that at some point I would see a young one somewhere around it. Well, sure enough, I did. I came in, I walked through this first pagoda. I wasn't 20 feet beyond the back side of it. I look down and this thing jumps up, reddish tone. It doesn't get on 2 feet. It stays down flat and it shimmies out of there like somebody had pulled it with a rope. There was no undulation, jumping like a normal animal. Didn't jump like a deer. It didn't jump like a fox, which I thought that was the first two things I thought. I had to make sense of what I just saw.
Mhm.
It was the color of a fox, but it was not a fox. I immediately thought, a fawn, because I've run up on fawns before and they'll hide
Mhm.
as long as they can until they jump up. Well, this thing came up on all fours and shimmied out. It never got on two legs, but it was, from what I saw, its back, let me say that, its back was about the size of a wombat. We don't have wombats in Tennessee, okay?
Right.
And its head, or what looked to be the head, never came up. It was all the face, what I would call the face, was always facing down. And it had what looked like a nose, but it wasn't a nose. And I'm thinking that was probably the top knot. That was probably the sagittal crest that was
Mhm.
starting to form that looked like a nose. And if it's true that these creatures can't necessarily turn back and forth, they always have to move at the shoulders like this,
Right.
it would follow that they couldn't raise their head this way. Who knows? But if you're on the ground and you're facing down, you probably, if it's true that they can't move their heads like us, then they probably couldn't lift their head to see where they were going.
Right.
But it stayed that way. I never saw its legs moving. The grass was so tall around it that I didn't see that, but it didn't undulate out like an animal. It just
Right.
went zoop, straight line, like somebody had yanked it out of the woods. And so that's just a few of the things that have happened there. They actually ran my friend Charles out, and he said there were so many wood knocks around him, they started seeming aggressive. So he left. He said, "I'm not used to that, David. I don't know what was going on, but I had to get out." I took my nephew, and immediately we no sooner got into those woods than the wood crashes started. And if your listeners don't know what that is,
Mm.
they do this thing that sounds like the whole woods are coming down around you. Just a noise, just crash, and then it's quiet. Everything's quiet. And they would do that. They would crash over here and I would turn that way. Then they would crash over there and I would turn that way. And I think that guy leaves. Then I look over there again and that guy leaves. So these things work in tandem to get you out of the area. Well, I don't scare. I don't have that. So it never worked on me. And I think they kind of gravitated toward that. I think they finally said, well, we can't scare him. Let's just accept him and punk him. I mean, honestly, I think it's just the weirdest thing. So, but yeah, there's so many. I've been so close to these things. Oh, well, let me back up and I'll tell you where I am mentally with this. When you start out as a Bigfoot researcher, you generally start on side A. Side A being North American ape, natural creature subject to every law such as we. That's the
Right.
way you think. But you still have the questions, the same questions that the skeptics have. Why can't we get good pictures? Why can't we get good video? Why don't we have one captured? So you
That
have
sounds
those questions.
familiar, don't it, Tex? That sounds real familiar. We get that from a lot of people and even
Well,
ourselves.
yeah, well, I mean, every researcher does if you're on side A. And so
Yeah.
you have that battle. You understand the skeptics, but you still want to find these creatures. So, and I had researched this area a lot, and I've been so close to these things that I can hear them breathing, and they sound like Darth Vader.
Yep.
And it sounds like a horse or something that has run 10 miles. Okay. They're just heavy, lots of lung power, you know, but they're, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. But so one day I'm walking along, and I do all this at night. Okay. I try not to have flashlights because, yeah, it helps you see, but it also helps everything in the forest see you. So
Right.
that's why I try to train myself to see at night. So rarely do I use a flashlight. So I'm walking along. It's dusk. It's getting dark, and I'm walking down this trail. And if I'm going 12 o'clock, I get this scream at 7 o'clock, and it sounds like a woman being murdered. And I think they hit me with subsonic frequencies because in my head, I'm seeing a woman coming at me with a knife, and I know I'm going to die. Okay, now why would I think that? That's not even anything I would think of, but this scream sounded like a woman being murdered. Well, I turn around and I start bracing. I know there's a knife coming at me, and I see this creature running parallel to me, and it hits a fence or a tree line, makes a left, and starts popping trees. Pow, pow, pow. I don't know if it used its hand. I don't know if it used a mallet. I have a feeling that their hands are so strong they don't need a piece of wood. I think they just pop, but I don't know that for sure. But after the adrenaline came out of me, after I came out of it, I thought that is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. So I'm going to get that thing. I am going to chase that thing down. I knew the trails, and I knew if I made a left right down here, I could probably hit the same area because I knew the trajectory. I knew how the trails run. So I make my left and I get down there and I kind of hunker down. When you're a Bigfoot hunter, you learn how to hunker. And I'm hearing the pops and snaps coming toward me. And I'm thinking, now, wait a minute, if I'm hunkered down and I jump up, what's going to happen? It's probably better for me if they can see me before they get to me. So I get back on the trail. Big Daddy starts screaming. The dying woman scream. All of a sudden, a deer jumps out at me. It's 10 feet in front of me. And I'm thinking, I'm going to die because I've seen the videos where these things rear up and start pawing and just will rip you to shreds. But it doesn't. Yep. It stands there in front of me with these big Bambi eyes and looking at me like, what do I do? Big Daddy's still screaming. I got a deer in front of me. And then another one starts screaming to my right. I look over right where this thing is screaming. There's nothing there. Now, listen to what I'm saying. There was nothing there. There wasn't even anything to hide behind. And I'm hearing this thing screaming at me and I'm freaking out. Big Daddy screaming, deer in front of me, Bambi eyes, and an invisible monster to my right, screaming bloody murder. That's when everything changed. I realized that we are exactly dealing with what the Native Americans have always said these things were, spirit beings that pass back and forth through reality. Now, I didn't want to be here. I wanted to stay comfortably on side A. I don't want to talk sci-fi language. I don't want to talk portals. I don't want to talk orbs. I don't want to talk invisibility. But the Native Americans, now, you know, and I have friends on the reservation in New Mexico. They tell me these things, and it's exactly what they would tell me. And I'm thinking, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around that right now, but that's what I'm seeing. And so finally the deer bolts over my left shoulder and is gone. And I'm left by myself with these two screaming monsters, and I'm loving it. This is what I'm there for. But it's like, I don't know if I can deal with invisible monsters, but my mind changed right then. I became firmly planted in side B. I will never go back to side A because side A thinks side B is crazy. Once you get to side B, all the questions are answered. This is why we don't have good pictures. This is why we don't have good video. This is why they're hard to capture. Now, if it's a natural creature, we should have them in zoos. I don't care how elusive they are. The snow leopard is the most elusive creature on the earth. It's rare that anybody even gets a sighting of it, much less capture one, but we've got them in zoos. So if we can capture snow leopards, why can't we capture these things? Well, because they disappear. The Native Americans say that these things can walk right in front of you. You can hear them. You can hear them walking, but you never see them. I called my friend Brenda Harris on the reservation. She said, David, now you get it. Now you know why we don't talk about these things like white men do, because they are not what white men think they are. And if you should have Brenda Harris, she can tell you so many stories about life on the reservation that the reservation is lousy with Bigfoot creatures. I'm telling you, she has some of the craziest stories. And the weirdest stuff is that they never report it to the government. They never report. They said, we don't want the government on our property. Okay.
Right.
We don't tell anybody, but the black trucks and the black helicopters come in every time something happens. And she said, David, we don't call them. They know, like if they will get on the mesas, that's where they keep their sheep, on the mesas. They will come up one morning, slaughter. Everything's slaughtered. The wool is the skin is ripped off their back, necks broken, legs broken. She said it's not wolves. They're not feeding on these things. It's like they just want to destroy. They don't tell the government, but yet the black trucks come in, black windshields, black side windows. She said we don't know how they find out. So it's like they're monitoring all of this. She said one time there was this fire along the river, and it was right where the walking trail was. And her friend went walking every morning, went down the trail, and she saw black trucks and guys in black suits and black glasses. And they saw her, and one of them came up and said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, this is my walk. I walk every morning." And he said, "Not today. You need to go back the other way." And so she went back. It got to a point where she could watch what was going on. And where this forest fire was, a helicopter comes over, black helicopter, drops a basket. She watches these guys load this huge big body onto the basket. Basket goes up.
This is Brenda Harris.
What's that?
This is Brenda Harris that's told you this?
Yes.
We got to get in touch with her.
Yeah, Brenda is fantastic. She spoke at my conference in Colorado, and she can talk forever. She's like me. She's had so many experiences. She just keeps going. But and she's got pictures of a lot of this stuff. So
write her name down, and after the show, we're going to get this information from David.
Yeah,
keeping me on the edge of my seat. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's she's got amazing stuff. There was even one instance when she and her sister, let me think. They went camping, and one of these creatures, they knew they were being tracked. So they got out real quick. They saw the creatures coming into their campfire. They got into their truck and took off. One of them grabbed the back of the truck and kept them from moving. And she said, we were spinning, trying to get out, and this thing would not let us go. So she's got amazing stuff. But yeah, the reservation. So anyway, I've coordinated with the Native Americans in that area, and they say, exactly now why we talk the way we do. And here's my thoughts about white men. Okay. As whites, we kind of idolize or idealize, let's put it that way. We idealize the Native American mind. Now, we think they're so smart when it comes to the land, people communications, group dynamics, all these different things. But when they talk about Bigfoot and spirit creatures, we go, they don't know what they're talking about. So why is it so easy for us to believe everything they say over here, but we have this line of demarcation? We don't want to listen to that. I think that's stupid. I think that's stupid.
Well, we look at
then they're just
we approach the government the same way. We pick and choose what we want to believe they say.
True. Yeah. So, it's been a fascinating journey, over 30 years of research and experiences. And one guy on a podcast the other day called me the Swiss Army knife of paranormal because I can keep pulling out stuff, and I think that's cool that people listen to me. I'm not going to lie to you. Why would I lie to you? Because that just makes my story suspect. And that makes both of you guys suspect in other people's eyes if I lie to you. So why would I do that? It's the whole Sabe thing. Are you familiar with Sabe?
Yes.
Sabe is the symbol that the Indians use, and it's among a pantheon of real creatures. So would Sabe seemingly not be real? And they use Sabe, the Bigfoot creature, because it keeps you truthful. If you lie about seeing a Sabe, then you not only make yourself look bad, you make everyone else that says they've seen them look bad. So it's a symbol of truth. I love that. I just love that the Bigfoot creature is used by Native Americans as a symbol of truth. I just love
Yeah.
it.
Yes, yeah, and I'm fascinated. You know how I'm about documentaries. Lord, everybody knows Selena is a documentary junkie. Uh, anyways, I just love watching. When they found the little legs and the fur, and it was a little leg with a foot, and it still had actually. And I told you you needed to be 18 or older to listen to these medical terms and things like that to watch
Right.
this channel. I just wanted to repeat that to cover
Yeah.
myself. But anyways, it had the meat even on the foot, some meat still left on the leg, and they found this small leg, like a juvenile leg, with the meat still on it. And then they found the other one.
Ah,
And they went and they actually buried it. And then they went years later after they figured out we might have buried a Bigfoot. We might have
right.
buried a small Bigfoot. So let's go back and dig it up. And they did. And of course, one of them was missing. They couldn't find it. But they
Ah,
did find one. Well, guess who? It was on a property of a Native American. Uh, she was, oh my gosh, y'all, just watching her. I could just was drawn into what she was saying. They fascinate me. I think that
yeah.
they are just so spiritual.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would love to absolutely go to a Native American site and just spend some time around them, just
Yeah.
to see how they do things and speak to one another. And I don't know, I
Right.
just think they're spiritual creatures. Just that's my
Right.
personal opinion.
Yeah. And speaking of spiritual creatures, my stuff, I'm very biblically oriented. Okay. And there's only two kinds of spirits, good spirits and bad spirits. And some people say that there's a connection between Bigfoot and Nephilim. And I'm kind of, I will tell you they're not Nephilim. That's my opinion, because the Bible clearly says what Nephilim are. And they looked human. They were the offspring of the fallen angels and the daughters of men. And they created the giant races that the
The
Bible,
Nephilim didn't have hair and stuff all over.
they didn't have hair. They were simply
Oh,
human looking. They were just giant humans.
well, you're the first person that's told me that. I thought
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah. Just go
Bigfoots.
through your Bible now. And they were so human looking. The Bible clearly gives you their tribes. They talk about the tribe, the Amorites, the Jebusites. Uh, when Moses came into Canaan, he sent spies. They knew the giants were there, but he just wanted to find out exactly what was going on. The spies came back and said, "We're like grasshoppers." You can plainly see this in the Bible. We are like grasshoppers to these people, meaning we're nothing. We're so small. How are we going to battle these creatures? Well, through God, they defeated and they claimed the land of Canaan. Goliath was a remnant of those creatures. Okay. But I do think if what happens to, what if a Nephilim somehow manages to recreate, I mean, I don't know, I don't exactly know what my thoughts are, but I do think that these are not natural creatures, and if they're spiritual form, then they're either good or bad.
Well, I
That's
was
just the
just
way it is.
asking you what you thought they were, so you answered my question.
Yeah, I definitely think they're spirit based. What
Text.
that means, I don't know, because I had an incident in Alabama, and I don't know if Anita's going to tell about this incident at my conference, but if she doesn't, then I'm going to tell it in full. And we were talking. Now, there was 4 women. I love going out with women because I think these creatures gravitate toward women, and there's a reason for that. And I think it's bad. Okay. Um, but they love to contact women, and they actually got into Anita's head and made her do some things. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But 4 women and myself, we're looking for hairy giants. Okay. Well, we end up talking to these creatures with EMF meters. EMF meters are what we use to investigate ghostly activity. Now,
Mhm.
how can you talk to a Bigfoot with an EMF meter? So again, we investigate UFO sightings, we investigate ghosts, and we investigate cryptids with the same equipment, and we're getting results. Now, how is that? I think all of these things boil down to one source. Now, what that source is, jury's out. I'm still working on that, but I think there's definite connections, and the world is crazier than what we can imagine.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion.
Orbs and
And-
these creatures are, I'm telling you, I just really feel like this is me personally. I think that the orbs have something to do with these creatures. I think when you see an orb, that they are either near, or that's them, or either they're connected somehow.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, I seen two cream colored and a light soft orange orb float around the cow pasture when I was visiting my sisters, and they just not floated like bees and bugs. I mean, it was about this big, and
Oh,
each
wow.
one of them just floated like lightly around this happened to me 3 nights ago. What was it, Tex, 3 nights ago?
Yeah,
And
I
I
think so.
remember showing Ron Moorhead what appeared above me, but I didn't see it while I was outside. I took a video, come back inside, and watched the video that I had took, and then I seen the orb just right above my head. So I was on the phone with Anita Bryan immediately, because her and Anita Collier, they know a lot about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
there are those who say that those orbs are actually Bigfoot creatures or some type of cryptid that has yet to manifest in a physical form.
Yes.
Yep.
And
there is a filmmaker in Colorado, and I can't think of his name, and I hate that. COVID took half my brain. Okay, so my memory of names is
I'm
terrible.
so sorry. So you're a miracle too.
Oh, it's I had it twice, and
oh Lord.
So, but anyway, he says, and I've not seen the footage, but he said he actually has footage of an orb and these things transforming into a creature. And he's got some weird stuff. He showed me one. I mean, I'll just tell you, I hunt dinosaurs. The Native Americans and whites have reported dinosaurs in the Four Corner states. And I research, and I have talked to people who have seen these things. So in this piece of footage that he has, it's this glowing orby thing, and at one point, dinosaur. He didn't say dinosaur. He said, "So what do you think that is?" And I said, "Well, it looks like a dinosaur." And he said, "Yeah. Where did that come from?" And then I started telling him about the sightings of what's called river dinos in the Four Corners states. And I actually go once a year to Utah, and I hunt dinosaurs. I think there's a lot of weirdness in the world. I think that the Mokalea Mbembe in Africa that's been reported, I think it's totally real. I mean, why would natives make that up? The pterosaurs that are seen in South America and Africa, I think, are real. And I think pterosaurs have a bioluminescent head.
A very, 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 very dear friend of mine, Jason McLean, had a pterosaur sighting.
How cool. That's
and
so cool.
It was in Texas.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, Texas. Yep. And it's like they have a migratory route. Texas and up and then around in Illinois, because giant birds, pterosaurs, have been sighted there, and then on into Pennsylvania in the Pennsylvania wilds. So it's like they have this migratory route. I totally believe it, man. I do. I just got to find some people to come out with me and start hunting. And so sign up.
If y'all watch the same things that I watch, let me go ahead and say, I don't mind saying it, and surely they won't mind. NVTV Bigfoot and Realize and Maximum Fear and Paranormal Caught on Camera. Y'all, they're not making these things up. People are capturing it, excuse me, on tape, and they're sending it in. Right. And they're saying, "What is this? What is this I caught running across my backyard?" And do you know that they were literally dinosaurs in these videos?
I saw that one. I saw that. Yeah. But here's where we are today, 2025. AI can create anything. Now, most of those things we're talking about were created before AI. So those are a completely different thing. But at this point in my life, I don't know if I'll ever believe any footage again, because AI can create the most flawless, absolutely perfect films. I mean, ever see better than anything Hollywood can produce. AI is doing it.
I'm sitting here saying AI means artificial intelligence, but I'm having to have Tex run my shows for me because I don't know anything about a computer. So I'm thinking, how do people do this AI stuff?
Well, I saw some tutorials, and there is one guy, and his company is called Abandoned Films, and he creates CinemaScope 1950s looking previews of movies that we know, Star Wars, Wizard of Oz. I mean, all these great movies. He creates these through AI as though they were made in the 1950s, and they have that CinemaScope look. And man, I tell you what, I'm wanting to do a promotional thing for me, because it's beautiful. Just look it up, Abandoned Films. And there's a few other people that I watch, and they create the most flawless, beautiful things you've ever seen. And there are no actors. You know, we're getting to a point, and I totally believe that we won't even use actors anymore. And in Hollywood, they're really upset because you could take Humphrey Bogart and make a movie with him and never know that it wasn't Humphrey Bogart. Well, now who gets the money for that film? Does the studio keep it all, or does the Humphrey Bogart estate get it? And Hollywood is really kind of going crazy right now, saying we're going to be left out of this whole AI thing. You're not going to need us anymore. And I see it coming. Well, they did it with Harrison Ford in the last Indiana Jones movie. They made a young Indy doing all this stuff. Well, there was no actor doing that. They took Harrison Ford's image and youthed it. They made it young, you know, to tell the story. So they don't need actors anymore. So I think that a lot of people now are going to be throwing us some bogus Bigfoot encounters. I really,
absolutely.
They've tried doing that for years, and some people have accomplished it, but there's some that they just can't. They can't do.
Right. Well, the Patterson Gimlin film, I totally believe that film has been researched more than the JFK assassination film.
I know it. I know
every time they come back going, you can see the muscles moving, and the hair does certain things that they've analyzed it and said, well, that happens because of a vein blowout, you know, a hemorrhage in the vein, like the varicose vein. They will do that on heavy animals, and it will flip the fur up when they take a step. That's that bad. And they said that creature has it. So I just, you know, and the guy that says he supplied Patterson with the suit, a liar. He's a liar. You know, that doesn't even look like a gorilla suit. That's craziness. You know, so you're lying about, it's crazy.
He can't replicate the walk. He can't do anything. I mean, it's just, the measurements don't add up. The biomechanics don't add up. It just, you could go on and on and on.
Yeah. Now, M.K. Davis has, I've not seen it yet, but he told me that he has that film longer, that the film that we know is actually longer. And he said you can watch that and see another one waiting on Patty. And we call her Patty because, you know, but Patty keeps walking, and you can see another one in the woods waiting. So I'm anxious to see that. I want to see that. But
I would love to have MK Davis on here, and I am serious when I say I want Brenda Harris.
Brenda Harris is.
Anyways, but I am learning so much. So you keep on going.
Good.
Keep on going.
I just, you know, the people at the conference Saturday were just kind of blown away, because I'm just truthful. I just tell people what I know. And my job is not to prove anything to anyone. My job is to tell you what I have seen, what I have experienced. It's up to you. It's up to you to decide if these things are real. And I've seen them. I know they're real. I've heard them. I've had interactions with them. They punked me many times, and they're real. They're as real as I am. And
let me ask you a question. I know these things are real, and that's what gets people, is they're like, wait, this happened to you? I told you it just recently happened, August 7th, 2024. I have not had another one. So as far as me going on and on, having a bunch of experience, I don't. I can tell you that these things are real. That's what I can tell you. But I'm going to ask you this. What do you say? I ask all my guests this on purpose. And it's kind of picking at my nephew. And Tex knows what I'm fixing to ask. What do you say to the hunters that say, I've been hunting 30 and 35 years and never seen nothing? What do you say to the critics?
I say, well, I win. Okay. Just because you've not seen one, cougars and bears are native to Tennessee, but there are many hunters who've never seen one. And we're talking about one of the most elusive creatures in a Bigfoot creature. We're talking about probably the most elusive creature on Earth. It doesn't surprise me you've never seen one. You won't see one until they want you to see them. So is that a spiritual thing? Is that like, we know that you can't see us because you don't accept us? I don't know. I'm just telling them that, like, okay, I'll tell you what. There are many hunters, I believe, who have seen these things, but they're afraid to talk about it.
There you go. That's
Well-
what
And you don't know that until you walk into a restaurant and freely say, "Hey, anybody got some Bigfoot stories?" You know,
Yeah.
and some of them, the vast majority, are going to go, "Ha ha ha!" But
Yeah.
some of those guys are laughing because they don't want to be laughed at.
That's
Yeah.
right.
My dad didn't tell me his experience until 6 months before he died, and he knew that I wouldn't laugh at him. He knew that this is what I do, and I would love to hear it, but he
But
didn't
it
tell
took
me
him
because
that long.
there's something about, and when you see a Bigfoot, sometimes it gets into you so hard that you just don't want to share. It's like, I can't tell anybody this. I can't, and you hold that in until the last moment. And I guarantee you there's hunters. I hear, I talk to them. They finally want to reveal it to me. They know that I won't make fun of them.
Yep.
There, I will just accept their story. So, but that's my take on it. If you haven't seen one, well, I win because I have. And again, I'm not here to convince you of anything, but I know what
I
I
just
saw.
had to ask you because Daryl Denton had a good answer too. It tickles me because he's like, I'm done too old for all these games. I'm trying to prepare and tell people what's out there. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's your choice whether you want to believe me or not, but I'm way too old to play all these games. So you either believe me or you're going to have the hard truth of it hitting you in the face one day when you see one with your own eyes.
Sure.
If you can't believe me, that's fine if that's what it takes. And that's sad that it's going to come down to somebody being so scared like I was. They didn't come at me at all. It was just something scary to look at because I had
Yeah.
never seen something so humongous in my life.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, that's something you should do, by the way, check into my story. But
Yeah.
but we were absolutely excited that you were coming on, and I'm excited about our whole list from here on. I think we have awesome guests coming on here, and thank you so much,
Cool.
Dave. You're awesome.
Thank you.
But I do believe it is a spiritual creature, and I do believe that because of what happened the day before that thing appeared in my sky. I'm going down the road and I'm kindly, just frustrated because I'm like seeing all these videos where people are feeding them and they're talking to them. And Mr. Patterson, which by the way, I sent a friend request yesterday because I was curious. I'm curious about him as a person, and I sent him a friend request, and I hope he accepts. But the ones where he's saying, Mike, the Bigfoot voice is saying Mike, and you can tell it's not a human saying the word Mike. And anyways, he caught two pictures of two Bigfoots over his fence, and he said that he could hear them from the kitchen, and that he caught the pictures over the fence. Well, see, I thought, Lord, that is not a human voice. And for somebody that's in music, you know what a human and how low it can go, and how, you've listened to all these gospel groups and they can hit as low as they can, and the ones that can hit as high as they can. And I'm just saying, I know music enough to know the lung capacity of a human, and this was not a human. And so I sent him a friend request yesterday. I sure hope he accepts, but I was fascinated by his videos. I think it's Mike Patterson that I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I am familiar with him, I think. But I'll tell you what, the vocal range on these creatures I experienced when my wife died. I would camp in the cemetery.
I'm so sorry, by the way.
Oh, it's been rough, but yeah, it's just a thing everybody goes through. But so I would stay at the cemetery overnight. Well, now when I first got there, I found a flag that had been braided. Now I don't know if you've ever seen a braided flag, but they're braided. They're not wind. Weathermen have looked at these and said, wind can't do this. These are actually braided. And I found one at the cemetery where my wife was buried.
Wow.
So I realized there was something going on. Well, the third week that I stayed there on the weekend at midnight, this creature started screaming, and it screamed for 3 hours. Now, this thing, I've never heard anything like it. Okay. It started low, and it sounded like it was saying wow, and it would go wow, and it would go up as high. You didn't know. You had no idea that these things could go that high, but it just kept going and sustaining, and it would go and it go, and then it would drop. Oh, it would wait a while, start again, and go and go and go. And it did this for 3 hours. Now, this cemetery is surrounded by dogs. They bark at every possum, every raccoon, whatever. They're barking all night.
Speaking of dogs, keep talking. I've got to open the door for the girls. They're about to
When
have
this thing started screaming, all the dogs shut up. They knew that they couldn't take this thing. And it did that for 3 hours. No dogs barked. Then it stopped, and then the dogs would bark. Now, this was so loud and so crazy that the next morning, the neighbor at the cemetery came driving to the cemetery and said, "What are you doing screaming in my backyard? I got 2 women down there scared to death. What are you doing in my backyard?" And I said, "Dude, this is Tennessee. Everybody's got guns. I got guns. Why would I risk screaming in your backyard?" He said, "Well, it was you. It was you. I know it was you." And I said, "Dude, you got the wrong guy." But see, that just validated what I had experienced. And it's like, I said, "This is what I'm down here investigating." Well, he was sure it was me. And I said, wasn't me. It wasn't me. But a lot of what I am telling you, the pagoda site is in my book that just came out a couple months ago. And here it is. The Pagoda. Let me get, okay. The
Read
Pagoda.
the exact name, by the
Let me
way.
get it on this side. I'm still not used to these screens, But the
Right.
Pagoda, it's the entire year-long investigation. This is put out by Premium Press America. You can order it directly from them, or you can get it from me at a conference. $30. It's a huge, thick book, and everybody was saying, "Wow, that's like the biggest book I've seen in a while." But you can call Betty at Premium Press America, 615-353-7902, and tell her about your podcast, and she would love to know about it. But yeah, you can get it directly from Premium Press America, 615-353-7902. There you go. That's my plug.
Okay, well, I just wrote that down. So
Yeah.
well,
And yeah, come to the conference in Paducah because it's promises to be unusual.
well, I
Yeah.
was
Well, if you can't make the one in Paducah, come see all 3 of us at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference,
yeah.
I'm
along
looking
with
forward to
MK
that.
Dave and Anita Collier.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Anita,
it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited about this one. Really.
their lives are just pure. I mean, they've had some experiences that'll blow your mind. Them and Lanita. Anyways, Tex, I had a good time, and I am apologizing. Y'all know that I brought my home with me for the past few weeks, and so I'm running back and forth. But it ain't that I wasn't interested in what you're saying, David, because I was trying to catch every minute I could.
Cool.
But anyways, y'all, just a couple more weeks, and I'll be at the lake house, and all this is okay.
All
So
right,
just
watch the woods.
I know it's surrounded by woods.
They love water. They love lakes and ponds. And I haven't even told you about the Kentucky massacre that happened around water. So that's another story for another time.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, gosh, he just had to throw that out there, knowing
Well,
that.
you know what? What it sounded like to me is he's coming back.
Sounds good.
Oh yeah, I'll come back anytime you want me. I got so
There
many
you go.
stories.
There you go.
I can just
Okay. Well,
give me a
what
jingle.
we do basically is, we hate to keep bothering y'all. I don't know how Tex feels, but I do. And that is, once we ask you to come back, we'd like for you to contact us and say, "I'm open this weekend. You got an opening?" Because we don't want to keep calling and saying, "Well, you ready? Are you ready?"
Okay. Yeah.
So,
well, see, I'll be bugging you. I'll be bugging you because
There you go.
and Catherine Scruggs actually called or messaged me today and said, "Are we ready for part 2?" I said, "Girl, yes." She didn't even get a fourth of her stories, just like you did.
Right. Yeah.
So
after 30 years, think about all the stories I've got.
Oh,
30
gosh.
years of monster
we
hunting.
get excited. And we sure appreciate you coming, David. Lord
Thank
mercy.
you.
Is there anything, Tex, that you want to say, or David, y'all want to close up? Say.
I'm just thankful for you folks spreading the word. It's like the more people learn, the more people learn. You know, I will tell you, like I tell people in my lectures, the more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah.
I know less right now after 30 years than I did when I started because I've learned so much.
I know.
There are no experts. I don't care who you are. There are no experts. People you see on TV, that's reality TV. There are no experts because we haven't investigated these creatures enough to have anyone be experts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty
I love
opinionated.
Expedition Bigfoot. Do y'all watch Expedition Bigfoot with Dr. Maria Maynor?
I don't
Yeah,
watch any of the
I'll
shows.
keep my comments to myself.
Go ahead and keep your comments to yourself, David, because I absolutely love how meticulous they are at gathering evidence. So
Well,
I think that when you're that meticulous, you're doing something right.
That's cool. Okay, whatever.
Anyway, but thank you so much for coming, Lord of mercy. And like I said, let us know, and I'll look on the schedule when you call or text me and let me know when you can come back. And if there's an opening, we'll put you there.
Yeah, it was very easy to get on because I was worried about my cavemanishness, but no, it was pow. I was on. So
I wouldn't lead you astray, brother. Y'all try to make his conference in Paducah.
Yeah.
And if you can't make that one, he's going to be at the Alabama conference in Anniston in June 7th. So
Atomic City Paranormal Symposium. Just look it up and you'll be impressed with our website.
There you go.
David, say hello and goodbye to all these people waving at you and saying hello, David.
Man, I love you all. You know, let's get together at a conference or something. If you want to talk, I talk to anybody. I'll talk all night. So come up to my booth and we'll have a good conversation.
Now there's the way to end the show. He's got everybody wanting to come see him now.
Yay.
Anyways, thank you, David Eller. You've been awesome. And
Thank
I said, contact us and come back.
I'll do it. Thanks.
We're going to go ahead and say good night to everybody. I love everybody in chat. You know that. Just bear with me. And I'll be in my new home in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.